Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you're watching on Torah Anytime or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, it's certainly exciting to have you along. And let me start at the beginning. I had gotten a letter from a 12-year-old in Muncie by the name of Basal Grossman, who says he's a big fan of the show and asked me to give him a shout out. I also got a letter from a 17-year-old, R Orlofsky, who did not ask for a shout out, but she just wrote to say how much she enjoys the show, and I felt like, why not give her a shout out? And it's so nice. So nice. How many people really seem to gain from the things that we do here? Almost every week, right? Because, people have been noticing that the production has been off a little bit. And I guess I should give a slight explanation before I go any further why that is. I used to write a column on chinuch for the Hamodia. It was years ago. They asked me if I would write a column on chinuch, and I said, "Who am I to write a column on chinuch?" They said, "You teach?" I said, "Well, that's certainly no proof that I know anything about chinuch. I can tell you many, many stories." People teach, but I don't know anything about chinuch. So they said, "Well, you have children?" I said, "Yeah, because that makes you a chinuch expert." I said, "Listen, not everybody who has children are an expert in chinuch. You know, so I when I used to work in youth work, I say there are certain areas that everybody is an expert in: youth and education, because everybody was young and everybody has kids and everybody went to school, so everybody's an expert. So I'm not such an expert." They said, "You can share your experiences." I said, "Oh, that I can do. You want me to share my experiences? Good and bad, I'll be happy to share with you experience." Yeah. So I used to write this column. Originally, there was one person writing a chinuch column, and then me. And eventually, they added a third person into the rotation. I was a little surprised. And I said, "Why?" They said, "Because you don't understand the concept of deadlines. We tell you, Rabbi Orlofsky, we have to have this column by Tuesday, whatever it is, and it's Thursday and we don't have your column and we're going to print. We still don't have your column." So the answer is that, the correct answer is probably that I'm a Batlin and an Atzlin. Those are probably the correct answers. But I like to think there's another answer, and that is that I'm an artiste. There's an art to being able to write a column. My wife always says to me, if you watch columnists, they have a certain seder that they go through when they write a column that follows a certain set formula. I'm not like that. I have a certain inspiration. In fact, I have a whole file of articles that I got halfway through and stopped writing because I felt they were trite. I didn't feel like they were saying anything that was a chiddush. I wasn't saying anything that was essentially relevant, and that to me is always important, more than anything to be relevant. I speak all around the world, and not all around the world, but I speak in some places around the world. Well, I used to speak in some places around. And whenever I would ask a group what was wrong with your Jewish education, they always said the same thing: it wasn't relevant. It wasn't relevant to my life. So whenever I speak, I always try to make it relevant. I want to know that I'm saying something that's meaningful to people. And you ever go to a Sheva Brachos? And you get one of these guys who gets up there and he gives a whole drasha, and he's just speaking to the one Rosh Hashiva. And he's sitting there, the Rosh Hashiva, no one knows what's going on. The Rosh Hashiva sitting there going, I'm not sure that this was his idea of a fun evening either, you know. But that's it. And then when he's all done, he turns and he says, Mazel Tov, and he sits down. That's not how you speak at the Shav Brachas. Speaking of Shav Brachas, you have one matara, and that's to speak to the Chas and Kala and misameach all the people who've come. Not to show everybody how smart you are. Yeah, show off your lumdus. It's supposed to be a message that's somewhat unique and focused. I was once at a Shav Brachas, and a guy, it was Parshas Bereshis, and the fellow who was speaking made the whole thing about Cain and how Cain this and what Cain was thinking and Cain there, why he killed his brother, and a whole thing. And when it was all done, he says, and our chassan's not like that. If the best thing you have to say about the chassan is that he's not guilty of fratricide, so it would take me a long time to write articles. I would start to be halfway through an article, and I would feel like it was shigrati. It was ordinaire. Yeah, there was nothing special about it. And I would just stop in the middle, and I'd have to start again. Yeah. So I have to be inspired. So there were two things that inspired me to start this podcast originally. One was a very popular podcast. It's really on politics. And I watched it, and I watched the numbers grow and grow and grow, and I realized how many people you could reach with this medium. And I was somewhat inspired to try my hand at it. And then there's someone else who has a Torah podcast who asked me to be on. And I don't want to mention any names, but suffice it to say, I did not feel I was treated well. And I said, well, if he can have a podcast, then I guess I can too. So I went to my producer, Michal, who you have met peripherally. One day we're going to have him actually on the show from behind the camera, in front of the camera. Yeah. Michal adopted me some years ago. He said, why don't you have a website? And I said, well, the person who was running my website got upset at me and closed it down and erased all my material. So I don't have a website. He goes, you want me to make your website? He said, okay. So he puts it on my website. He gathers together all of my material. He puts it all on. It's unbelievable. So I call him up at some point, and I say, I want to make a podcast. I don't know what that means. He says, no problem. Right? He went out. He bought equipment. He started setting everything up. We arranged everything, And we used to film it in front of my house, in my home. And then we moved it to his studio in Telstar. And then with the coronavirus, of course, he expects me now to do it on my own. There's a certain logic to that. I mean, I do give shiurim on Zoom every single day. So I should be able to work Zoom. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I put a tremendous amount of effort into these podcasts. Effort's perhaps the wrong word. Would say enthusiasm, energy. I really try, and I put a lot into it. And it's happened to me 3 or 4 times that I recorded a podcast, and then I check, and it wasn't on record. I had to do the whole thing over again. Now, in Parshas B'Shalach, it says that the Jews come to Elim, and there's 12 springs and 70 fruit trees, and they all sit down and rest. And then Moshe Rabbeinu picks them up and moves them back out into the desert, and there's no water, there's no food. It's hard to do it. It's harder to do it again. Avram Avinu, Kodesh Baruch Hu comes to him and says, leave your home, leave your family, leave everything and go to Eretz. A terrible nisayon. And when he gets there, there's a famine. So he can't stay. So he goes down to Egypt. So a number of the Mefarshim say, why doesn't he go back home? And one of the answers that they give is, he didn't know if he could pass the test the second time. He didn't know if he could pass the test the second time. Very hard. So here I make a whole podcast, and suddenly I see it wasn't recording. And then I have to do it over. And when you do it over, it's so much harder because, first of all, you put so much of yourself into it, and second of all, you have to remember what you said. Now, it's really hard for me because I can't remember what I'm saying when I'm in the middle of saying it. Imagine I have to try and recreate it. So these things contributed to a certain extent to the fact that we have fallen behind in our podcasts. That's merely an explanation. It's not an excuse. I'm not excusing it. Yeah, I do try, but for all of you who tend to write and say, "Are you still alive?" I'm still alive. I'm just, I have to wait for the spirit to move me, so that I can, sit down and say something that I hope will be relevant and meaningful to everybody who's listening. So that's my general introduction. If you don't see the podcast come out when it's supposed to, don't worry. I'm fine. I'm just waiting for the inspiration to hit me. Yeah. And it makes it much harder to wait for inspiration. Yeah. So I heard a story once with David Ben-Gurion, first Prime Minister of Israel. I don't know if it's true. This is a story I heard. He was talking to somebody who was a religious person. And the guy looks out the window and he sees it's getting late. And he says, "I'm sorry, I have to daven mincha." And he goes in the corner and he davens what we in the vernacular refer to as a quickie mincha. Yeah. Cheeseburger. Yeah, okay. Everyone's davening the mincha like that, and not everybody, but some of us have davened minchas like that over the time. When he comes back, David Ben-Gurion, who's not religious, says to him, "You call that a mincha?" So he says, "No, but because I do that 3 times a day, every day, sometimes I have a truly inspiring tefillah." He says, if you can say that you've had a truly inspiring tefillah once in your life, it's worth doing that 3 times a day, every single day. So that's the idea. Sometimes, you got to talk even when you don't have the inspiration, and you hope HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to catch him. Right? There are times when I used to give a Motzi Shabbos shir, and I'd have to give the title the week before. And the title was based on my question, and I had no answer. And I just was hoping that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would give me an answer. I'd have siyata d'shmaya. That happened almost every time, except one time. I literally painted myself into a corner. It was Shabbos Chanukah. It was me, Kate's, and it says that Yaakov Avinu sent down to Tzafnas Parneach Mezimras Haaretz. And it lists different things that Eretz Yisrael is sung about, and one of them is botanim, which Rashi says are pistachios. And I wondered, what's the significance of pistachios that Eretz Yisrael should be sung about it? What is so special about pistachios? So I figured, okay, I would start with a little routine on Hanukkah gifts, and I'd go into this, and sending gifts, and yeah. So I called this year Pistachios, the Perfect Gift Idea. Now, a title like that doesn't leave you a lot of room to maneuver. Somebody told me they once asked Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tatz to come and speak. So they made the arrangements, and he said, "Could you send us some titles?" So he sent him a list of like 20 titles. And so somebody said, "But what do these things mean?" He says, "Nothing. I'm going to talk about whatever I want. So just pick whichever title sounds good." That's very smart. It's a smart thing to do. Yeah, you have to be careful with titles. Sometimes the title gives everything away. Yeah. My wife saw a shir once. It said, "Shemitah and Shabbos, is there a connection?" Now, do you think the guy's going to get up and say, "Nope, thanks for coming"? He's sort of telegraphing the punchline, as we say, So when you say pistachios, the perfect gift idea, you sort of boxed yourself in. And I could not find, at least in all the farm that I looked in, any significance to pistachios and Judaism whatsoever. Adiyom hazeh. And I kept saying, Akash Baruch is not going to do this to me. He's not going to expect me to get up in front of a whole group. And, with about 10 minutes ago, my wife said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll get someone who plays the guitar and we'll sing Kolbach and we'll call it Zimra Sa'aretz. I don't know what to do. I found something else to talk about, but, I should really take a leaf out of Rabbi Tax's book and just try to give amorphous titles. When Mr. Meisel's used to have out on his Mirpeset a Tikkun Leil Shavuos, and it used to go all night, and they got a tremendous amount of people. And they used to put me in the last slot. Yeah, and 3:30 in the morning. I don't know what time it was. They said there's nobody else we're going to get people at that time in the morning. So I'm overtired. Everybody's overtired. When people are overtired, how they start to sound? Open parentheses. The best column I ever wrote when I was writing for the Hamadiyah was about how kids don't get enough sleep. But as I mentioned, I have to be creative. So I wrote the whole article sounding half asleep. It was somebody, it was written almost like a haiku, you know what I mean? Very, in a sort of dreamy kind of way. It was absolutely brilliant. I have to say it was one of the best columns I ever wrote. My editor called me up and said, don't ever do that again. You're writing on a 5th grade level, okay? You don't want to lose your people. Right. Sleep is a big problem. Many children don't get enough sleep. How does this affect them? Studies have shown. Notice how sometimes people rate these things in iambic pentameter, you know what I mean? But so I was half asleep, and I don't remember what I was talking about. I had this phrase and I said, it's like a prism of reality. I look around the room and everyone's nodding. And I say, what are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense. What's a prism of reality? I never ever heard of such. You people are not in anything at this point in the night. Anyway, next year when they put out the flyer, they said, Rabbi Orlofsky speaking on the prism of reality. Well, it is a pretty good topic because you can talk about anything that you want. You know what I mean? So, but generally you try to approach things and you hope that you'll get that inspiration. And like I say, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And so what I'm going to try to do, really make a yeoman's effort now, is to make sure the podcast comes out on time, whether it's inspired or not, whether it's relevant or not. I may just read excerpts from my electric bill. Shocking, I know, but I know you're thinking, why not read from your phone bill? Because that's better for communication. The answer is because my phone bill is too depressing. Anyway, okay. So what are we going to talk about? So I've been thinking about this because once again, through foreplanning, you people in Chutz La'aretz decided to make Shavuos on Shabbos. Second day Shavuos. We had our regular Shavuos on Friday, and then we went into Shabbos. You decided to make a second day of Shavuos. The result of that is that we had Parshas Nosai on Shabbos, and you had Shavuos. So when we had Ba'al Ischa, you were doing Naso, and so it will be like this, staggered. Yeah. So I thought, can I come up with an idea that will tie together several of these parshios, so regardless of when you happen to tune in, it will make a little sense for you. So I want to say over an Alshach, and I think you'll find the idea immensely relevant. Let me take one step backwards. It's always important to understand where we are in history. Like, that's what the calendar is for. So we know Sfiras HaOmer are the 7 weeks that we traveled in the Midbar until we got to Har Sinai. Har Sinai, we got the Torah. The next 40 days, Moshe Rabbeinu is up in Shemayim, getting the Torah. What are we doing? Waiting. And as luck would have it, we were off on the count. Unbeknownst to us, we were counting down to building the Egel Azahav, the golden calf. I mean, we didn't realize it at the time. We thought we were waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu to bring down the Shnei Luchos Abris. Yeah. But in fact, we were just counting down to the Egel. And it's every year at this time. The day that could have been the receiving of the Aseret Adibros, written and made by the hand of God. Instead, we get Shavas B'Tammuz, a day of destruction. It's a sad reality. So, I may have mentioned this last year, but the historical events that define the 3 weeks are in fact separated by a year. Shavas B'Tammuz was the Egel, and Tisha B'Av was the Meraglim. So there's a process over there. There's a year in between. But obviously there's 3 weeks in between the dates of the two events. But even leading up to the Meraglim, there is a progression. And the progression in the Torah is from the Misonanim, the Misavim, and the Meraglim. The Misonanim are the complainers. The Misavim are the desirers. Yeah. And the Meraglim, of course, are the scouts who came back with the evil report. Yeah. What was the progression? So the Alshach says the progression was interesting because it goes from Misonanim Ra the Oznei Hashem. Only Hashem heard it. Vayishma Hashem v'yicha apoi. There was no public. Everybody was fetching to themselves. Everyone's complaining to themselves. And Hashem is upset. And after that, it says the people get taifa. Vayishma Moshe es ha'am boichel lemishpachosav. And he heard the people crying with their families. Now they didn't just cry to their to themselves. Now they were crying to their families. And when it comes to the Meraglim, it changes. They tell everybody that they're going to die. Vatisa kol ha'eda v'yitnu es kolam v'yivku ha'am b'layla hahu. Everybody cries. Everybody cries. There was a progression, an individual sense of unhappiness, and that spread to the family units. Our whole family is upset. And that eventually spread to all of Klal Yisrael. Because a bad attitude is contagious. I had a guy in R Samech. He used to be in the Hells Angels. And he made his way back there. It fell into R Samech. But there was still a certain, shall we say, unpolishedness to his approach to life. So he comes in one day and he says, I'm in a bad mood. And my philosophy is always to share that with others. So I'm unhappy. And then I make my family unhappy. And then everybody gets unhappy. Remember a bumper sticker in the 80s that said, are we having fun yet? Was anybody happy? It spreads. Bad attitude spread. It's a big problem. Big problem. But what were they complaining about? The Mesonerim were complaining about the Tirchas Haderech. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to rush them into Eretz Yisrael very quickly. So it's very interesting. We have those two upside down nunin. It says to separate me pa'anios lapa'anios. What are the pa'anios? So just before those nunin, it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu was traveling to get us into Eretz Yisrael. And right after that's the Mesonerim. So what do those two things have to do with each other? It says because when it was time to go, the Chazal say, we ran away from Har Sinai without even a backwards glance. Like children running out of school. Without even looking back. When you go someplace you really enjoy, you watch from the window as you're pulling away because it was so nice and you enjoyed it so much. And if there were people that you visited, you waving goodbye. They just ran away from Har Sinai. So Kadosh Baruch Hu said, it must be they're so anxious to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why else would they run away from Har Sinai? Okay, let's get to Eretz Yisrael quickly. The people started complaining. Whoa, what's the rush? Why are we going so fast? Slow it down. It's too much. I can't handle it. Those are the Mesonerim. What comes next are the Mesavim. Oy. We remember the meat, and we remember the fish, we remember the cucumbers. I get such a cheshek for a cucumber. Yeah. Oh, the things we used to be able to have. Can't get a good piece of garlic out here. Misavim. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, there's no way you're going to be able to satisfy this. Because they didn't want something, they just had a taiva. The difference between a taiva and a chemda is I want something that is chomed. I want this. This is desirous. When I have a taiva, I just want. I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. You want cereal? No. Can we get tuna fish? No. Pasta? No. 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 Scrambled egg? No. No. Why? Because I don't want a thing. I just want. I just want num 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 num. And then of course come the Meraglim. And they say there's no way we can capture Israel. It's too hard. So I look at these three events and I say there's obviously a progression. But what's the progression? Well, for one thing, they could go and speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. But they felt a disconnect. I'm going to tell Moshe Rabbeinu that I'm tired. I can hear him already. I was up on Mount Sinai for 120 days. I didn't sleep the whole time. Okay. I'm going to tell him I have a taiva. A taiva? You have a taiva? I didn't eat for 120 days. Did I tell you I didn't eat? No. And finally they come back and they say, Eretz, there's giants, fortified cities. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu can do it, but we can't. It's too hard for us. This world is an entrance hall. We're on a journey. You're going on a journey. You're going to get someplace. And the first thing we do is complain about the journey. It's too hard. What do I have to work so hard for all the time? I'm okay. Good enough. Charles Osgood used to have this thing called the Osgood Files on WCBS radio. I happen to have a copy of this one particular poem he wrote that has been repeated many times. There once was a pretty good student who sat in a pretty good class and was taught by a pretty good teacher who always let pretty good pass. He wasn't terrific at reading. He wasn't a whiz-bang at math. But for him, education was leading straight down a pretty good path. He didn't find school too exciting, but he wanted to do pretty well. And he did have some trouble with writing, and nobody had taught him to spell. When doing arithmetic problems, pretty good was regarded as fine. 5 plus 5 didn't always add up to 10. A pretty good answer was 9. The pretty good class that he sat in was part of a pretty good school. And the student was not an exception. On the contrary, he was the rule. The pretty good school that he went to was there in a pretty good town. And nobody there seemed to notice he couldn't tell a verb from a noun. This pretty good student, in fact, was part of a pretty good mob. And the first time he knew what he lacked was when he looked for a pretty good job. It was then when he sought a position, he discovered that life could be tough. And he soon had a sneaky suspicion pretty good might not be good enough. The pretty good town in our story was part of a pretty good state, which had pretty good aspirations and prayed for a pretty good fate. There once was a pretty good nation, pretty proud of the greatness it had, which learned much too late. If you want to be great, pretty good is in fact pretty bad. So there you are. The road's too hard. This is good enough. Stop here. Can't we rest? We take a nap. What's the rush? What's the hurry? Where you going? Slow down. You move too fast. Gotta make the morning last. Yeah, where you going? And once you decide that the journey to a meaningful location is too hard, then you start to focus on all the stuff that you don't have. I don't have any meat, I don't have any fish, I don't have any cucumbers, I don't have any garlic. Look at all the stuff I'm missing. Little things I don't have. I want stuff. I want to enjoy life. And finally, after you get through all of that, you reach the destination and you say, wait. Check it out first. Let's send out Miraglim to see what this place is like. And the Miraglim go out and they come back and say, not for you. It's too hard. Just give up. And they all start crying. Because I had my eyes set on a goal. You know, people do this all the time. They decide that they really want to have a truly meaningful life. And then they find out that a truly meaningless life is a lot easier. People start off and really want to daven beautifully, have a wonderful marriage, spend a lot of time with their kids, or whatever their motivations are, whatever their goals are, and then they realize it's hard. So they give up. They give up along the road. Because their journey was too hard. And I'd rather eat an onion. And when I finally get there, I say, that's not for me. Good enough. I'm good enough. The guy said this to me once, because Rabbi, what do you want from me? You know, I'm a good guy. I'm pretty good. It's good enough. I said, you're in Shidduchim, aren't you? He says, yeah. I said, I have a girl for you. So tell me about her. It was okay, nothing special. Good enough for you. No, I want to marry somebody exceptional. No, you don't. You want to marry somebody pretty good because you're pretty good. She's pretty good. Have a pretty good marriage. Some pretty good kids. When you die, they'll write on your tombstone, it was pretty good. That's enough. And we're content. We start this triumphal march, Parshas Ba'aloischa, in Teretzville. And then we have the Mazonanim, and then we have the Mizavnim, and then we have the Meraglim. And Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you know what, just forget the whole thing. Forget it. You're right, it's too hard for you. Well, try again with your kids. Maybe they'll manage. Maybe they'll manage. We go from Shavuos to Shavuos of Tammuz. You know why? Because we were afraid. We thought Moshe was dead. We thought we weren't able to speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly. We were afraid we wouldn't get the Torah. It was too hard. So we quit. What did we bring in Egel? Because Egel is a baby. A baby. The Gemara in Shabbos, when it talks about the Egel, it calls it a Gidi. Why? Because Avodah Zarah is usually represented by a goat. But the Egel wasn't a goat, it was a little kid. It was a baby goat. A baby. Can't handle it, too hard for me. I want to do it. No problem. Stay here in the midbar with the clouds around you, drink from the air, eat the man, and die here. And then maybe your children will have a little more confidence, be willing to go and face their destiny. History can always go two ways. Shavuos B'Tammuz could be the day when we receive the Luchos, or it could be the day when we build the Egel and watch the Luchos get destroyed. There's a famous story, we used to tell it at NCSY all the time at the end of a Kumsitz. There was a wise man and he could guess anything that you hid in your hand. And a person would come to him and say, wise man, what do I have in my hand? And he says, it's a key. And they say, a key to what? And he says, a key to your front door. And sure enough, it was. And he says, wise man, what do I have in my hand? And he says, it's a cookie. He says, what kind of cookie? He says, chocolate chip. He says, oh, you're right. He says, one person decided he would fool the wise man. And he came with a little butterfly. And I'll say, wise man, what do I have in my hands? And he'll say, a butterfly. And I'll say, is it alive or dead? And if he says it's dead, I will open up my hands and it will fly away. And if he says that it's alive, I'll gently crush it and show him that it's dead. So he comes to the wise man and he says, wise man, what do I have in my hands? And he says, a butterfly. And he says, is it alive or dead? And the wise man said, the answer to that question is in your hands. How we're going to play out these 40 days from Shavuos to Shavuos B'Tammuz, that's in our hands. And that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the podcast, make any comments, sponsor an episode, you can go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. And that's it for this week. Looking forward to seeing you again. My name is Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode. And we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.